This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Okay, so my new character, I'm thinking I'm going to call him Harn Tigano. He's an archaeologist and a scavenger, and he went through the ruins of the first settlement looking for ancient tech.
All right, cool. I think that's a good concept. I like it.
All right. He wasn't involved in the struggle against the Transhuman Corporation until his village was destroyed by TH hunters looking for rebels. Rockets took out the entire thing when they couldn't root the rebels out, so then Tigano turned his skills towards taking out the corpse.
Cool. I like that. And like a missile strike means like there were no bodies, right?
No bodies found.
Cool. All right. What about you, Jared? What do you got?
Okay, I've got an idea. Kiris Girno is a corporate soldier, a trained hunter, killer, used to be a squad leader for Transhuman, hunting rebels.
Used to be.
Okay, I think I like where this is going.
Okay. They did some bad things in the past, rooting out traitors and moles in the TH organization. Then they followed some leads and took the squad to a village. When a rebel was uncovered, a firefight broke out, and Kiris ordered heavy ordnance in when the squad got pinned down. They thought that they'd be getting aerial support from like a gunship with a Gatling laser gun, but it turned out that it was a torpedo barrage that wiped out the entire village. They lost that many civilians, shot Girno into realizing who they'd been working for.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Has Kiris told Harn?
No, I don't think so. I think that they know about Harn's story, and not their friends. They don't know how to bring it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is something that we should actually we should play out at the table if you guys are comfortable with it.
Yep.
Yeah, so Girno's the next villain, looking to make up for their past sins by joining the rebels, and they're also partially responsible for one of the pivotal tragedies of their best friend's life.
And of course, they are past friends from TH who are now trying to hunt down the new traitor.
Is that okay with you, Bob? I mean, it's your backstory, too. I don't want to step on it.
Yeah, that works.
All right. With that, welcome to the 450th episode. 450th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. On tonight's episode, we delve into playing and GMing reformed villains as protagonists. Along the way, we'll take your questions, comments, and suggestions live from the chat room for life before jumping in the after show. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
And I am Old Man Logan. All right, welcome aboard 450. Who'd have thunk it?
Ooh,
It's a big round number.
Nice.
All right, time for that thing we do where we check everybody's temperature before we head on into the house, see how everybody's doing. Phil, how you feeling?
Really? You want me to go first?
Yeah, go first. Get it out of the way.
I mean, we might as well
Are you positive?
I'm not just positive.
I'm not just positive. I'm
know you are.
COVID positive.
Thank you.
We're going to laugh about it a little, but I am COVID positive. I had an indication that I might be positive when my daughter got a fever after school last week. So since my daughter, who is never ever sick, got a fever, I was like, okay, I'm concerned. So I packed up. I was at work. I packed up my office, threw it in my bag. And before I left campus, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go take a COVID test so that I know no matter what, I'll know what my status was the day that she got a fever. So I did that test like Thursday. I went home. I took Friday off because I had reported a close contact, and work was like, you're vaccinated. You can come in. And I was like, nah, I don't think so. So I took a day off and just like chilled, which was nice, actually. I could have used the day off. My daughter went and got a PCR test. She tested positive. On Saturday, my test came back. I tested positive. So we think we kind of pieced together some stuff. We think we kind of know the chain of events leading up to it. We're not 100% sure. The thing we know for sure is that we probably infected each other. depending on which, like, who got it first. We definitely infected each other because we were together on the weekend, and then I had my daughter over for dinner on Monday. So pretty sure that's how all that happened. So anyway, I'm in quarantine for 10 days. I'm basically just home at my apartment. So, which is fine. I've been wanting to work from home since they made me go back to the office. And because, I live in capitalism hellscape. And I should pause for a second. I am asymptomatic. So I have no COVID symptoms whatsoever. I feel fine. I don't have any fever, congestion. I have my sense of smell and taste, like all that stuff, right? I'm like, I would not have known that I was positive had it not been for my daughter's fever. As for my daughter, that fever went away in a half a day, and she's like, just a little head congestion, nothing major. Full disclosure, because I think we've talked about in the show, we are both vaccinated, and I am more than confident that is the reason why both of us had, I had an asymptomatic case and she had a very minor case. So vaccine did its job because I didn't even know I didn't even know I was positive, right? Like I had no idea. So anyway, I'm home, and because I'm fine, I'm working. So I worked from home today, and I left the house for 2 minutes in the last couple days. I took the garbage to the dumpster and timed it so that no one else was around, like none of my neighbors. They all have, like, there's a routine in the morning how everybody gets out of here. So I kind of waited till everybody was gone, put on a mask, walked out, threw my garbage, took my car for a quick spin around the block because it hadn't been driven in about 4 days, put it back, came back in the house. So we're okay. I was a little shocked on Saturday. Like I was a little off. Like, wow, I can't believe I got it. I don't really do anything very risky, and I don't really go too many places, but that's how this Delta thing works, man. It's insidious. It's fast, and it doesn't take much. It overpowered my base defenses, but did not make any traction once it tried to get into Casa de Phil. Pretty much got bounced at the front door. So House Pfizer, I lay tribute to House Pfizer because I'm good. Like, I'm not saying people should run out and go get infected, because I sure as hell would like to not have been
run out and get
positive.
the shot, though.
But I'm a large man, and I don't know if I wanted to pit my immune system in a blind fight with this virus. I kind of like having the edge. So I don't know. I can't stress enough, right? Masks, social distancing, be careful, and for God's sakes, go get your vaccination, because the people I was in close contact with all tested negative. So, like, that's also, that's also kind of a tribute, because the people, like, I was near at work, they were vaccinated, they're fine. Like, I don't know what else to say. So anyway, it was a little sobering. I can't leave my house until Monday. So of course, because I can't leave my house till Monday, I'm like, man, I would love a Starbucks. Like, it's just the one, like, everything else is fine. I had Chinese food delivered tonight, and I'm going to order my groceries online and have them just put them on my patio. And I'll bring them in. So I'm like totally fine in every other respect, right? Like, everything else is fine, but man, could I go for like a caramel mac, like, just, or a cold brew pumpkin spice latte, So that'll be on my list when I am freed from quarantine. How about you guys?
Well, I'm doing pretty well. I'm tired. It was good. The weather up here in Buffalo has been up and down, so we're at that point where my allergies kick in for a day or two. Whenever the weather changes drastically, like I'm good if it's raining all day. I'm good if it's sunny all day, snowing all day, whatever. But on those days when it goes from 70 to 30 and from sunny to partly cloudy to rainstorm, those are the days that my nose just kicks in. And so I had like very little sleep Sunday night and last night. But I'm catching up to it. Things are going well. Those of you who follow me and some of the other things know that we had another personnel change at my office, but we have a new person, and new employees are always exciting. And this one seems to be working out pretty well, so I like that. So work has been very, very, very busy because obviously a new employee means that everybody has to step their game up for a few days, and because you're doing your job plus trying to answer questions for somebody new, kind of thing. Which is also why we do, office lunches and stuff for everybody. But it's been nice. That's pretty much it. Other than that, I've just been having a good time. So I'm feeling okay now. And once I get a good night's sleep, I'll be good. I'll be back in business again. How about you, Bob?
Yeah, I first would like to say, like, clearly we made a joke at the beginning of the bit. We obviously are not diminishing this COVID thing in any way, shape, or form. It has been terrible to a lot of people. Some people use humor as a coping mechanism. I, for one, always do. It's one of my first lines of defense. So while we did make that gag at the beginning, we do take it all very seriously, and we don't want to diminish this in any way, shape, or form from anybody who may be having a much bigger problem or maybe has lost someone due to the disease or whatever. Like, clearly that is not where we were going. I personally am dealing with some kind of weird allergy freak out. Something in this condo decided it was going to just make my allergies go off, and I don't know what it is yet. But it's just been annoying for the last day and a half. So I have to deal with that. But other than that, feeling pretty good mentally, physically. It's been very mellow since everything kind of settled down once I got into the condo. While the work is not clearly done yet, I still have a lot of stuff to do. I've calmed down quite a bit. All of the anxiety of the move and all that stuff like that. Sleeping on a real bed has done wonders for my back and my neck. So I'm not having a lot of the chronic issues that I've had plaguing me for quite a while. So it's very nice to have, mellow days where it's like, I don't notice something bothering me. So that's good. And that is about it. So let's jump in, do the one thing. Got my plumbing problem fixed today.
Yay!
Plumbers came in, took care of everything. No more leaks. Yay. Knock on wood. So hopefully that'll be the last of that. Got a few more things to take care of, but it was nice to scratch that off the list. And it wasn't, I was concerned that once they got in and started looking at all the piping and everything and trying to figure out what was going on, that it would expand and become a bigger problem, that they would have to fix more stuff and it would cost more money and take more time. And that was not the case. And I got out of it pretty easy. So yay. So that is over and done with. Jerry,
so it's done. You can use your
the
main
main bathroom. Yeah. I can go and use a big shower again.
All right. No more going in the secret bathroom.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. For me, my one thing this week was Star Wars Visions. I was excited to see if they were doing anything with Star Wars. That was the movie. Star Wars for me was what Lord of the Rings is for a lot of people of a different generation. It was my big movie, and I love everything they're putting there under the new license. And when I saw they were doing something with animation, I thought, well, let's see what they can do. And I haven't watched all of it yet. Somebody wisely recommended not binge watching it because they're such different stories. You can kind of lose what made each one special by watching too many at once. So I watched the first 3 and the next 2, and oh my God. I mean, episode 1, right from the get-go, blew my mind away. I want to run a Star Wars game It's got characters, it's got action, it's got story, it's got depth. It's like 15 minutes long and tells an incomplete like thing. It's got humor, and then episode 2 was a totally different story, and episode 1 is a Ronin story. Episode 2 is about a band. I mean, it's that kind of thing. And then I watched the next 2 episodes, which were also very good. So it's just amazingly good. I would strongly recommend it if you like anime, if you like fun stories, if you like Star Wars, if you like sci-fi. I would strongly recommend watching Star Wars Visions. I'm not gonna say it's the best thing they've ever done, but it is so good, and it's a lot of fun. So that's all I'll say is just watch Star Wars Visions, enjoy it. Each episode is between 15 minutes and 25 minutes long. There's no fit length on them, and so you can watch them in little bursts. And it's a lot of fun. Bill.
Yeah, my one thing, not my COVID diagnosis. My one thing is I finished She-Ra over the weekend. Yeah, I've been binging it mostly while eating meals and stuff. So like watching it on my iPad at the kitchen table. But for the finale, I saved the last 2 episodes to watch on TV, like on my big TV. So oh, what a fantastic series! The ending's fantastic. I loved it. The show is so wonderfully queer that I also just loved all of the queerness of that show. It ended just the way I wanted it to. There was kissing. There were people I shipped properly. There was only one that I suspect, like that I shipped on suspicion, but like no real positive confirmation. And since Jerry hasn't reached the end, I'll save it for I'll save it for Bob for later. But there was just 2 that I was like, oh, these two should just basically be a couple. But anyway, so good. What an amazing amount of story for what starts as like a pretty, like, I don't know, it starts like a kid's show. And it ends like, I know it's technically still a kid's show, but man, like, that show packs some drama. It not only packs some drama, like there's like a whole deeper, there's like a whole deeper thing about bad parental relationships. And oh man, like
there's a lot of layers to that show.
There's a lot going on in that show. If you just kind of watch the relationships between characters, like there's a lot going on in that show. I will probably at some point later rewatch it just to see it again, but I was thoroughly thrilled. I had no doubt when Senda raved about it that I would enjoy it, but oh, such a joy. And I'm very happy to have finished it. So that's all I will say about that.
Cool.
All
right. Well, that is going to bring us to a place that have we ever been in the lab?
I have no idea if we've actually used this place before. I think I have a key for it on the ring. Here, let me open up the door. Take a look.
I think somebody left something percolating.
For how long? I have no idea.
I don't know.
Flip on the lights. I'll flip on the lights. You introduce where we are.
All right. Tonight we're here in the lab because we're going to try a new kind of segment. We started talking about a topic for this week. We tossed ideas back and forth. And an idea came out of our comparisons of characters similar to the Fallen Hero from last week. I suggest we talk about how to play a reformed villain as a character type. After we brainstormed a little, we realized we wanted to lay out a segment that would work not just for reformed villain, but any player background archetypes.
Yeah, and that's when we got an idea for a new segment to do on the show, where we look at common player background archetypes and help both the player and the GM get the most out of that background. So tonight, we're unveiling our latest segment, Background Check. In this segment, for our first and pilot segment, we're going to look at the reformed villain, and we're going to tell you what you need in your backstory and hooks that you should give your GM so that they can work your backstory into the game. We're going to talk about cool story arcs that this background can provide. We're going to talk about some pitfalls about this background and how to avoid them. And then some tips on how to play this background harmoniously with the rest of the group. And then we'll finish it all off with a roundtable discussion talking about the fallen hero. With this being a new type of segment, we don't really know how long or short this is going to be. Like, we're just going to do what we've got written out. And we would love to hear your feedback on what you think about this segment. And if you like it, toss us some other backgrounds that you would like to see added to the background check. Sound good?
All right, cool.
Good.
So with that preface, we need to get started. Of course, like we do with all segments, we got to do a definition.
Behold, you are in the presence of Definition Panda.
Yeah, we don't have a lot to define here tonight. We all know what a villain is, right? The bad guy in your game. But let's take a quick look at the word reformed. Having relinquished an immoral, criminal, or self-destructive lifestyle. There are a couple other definitions, but that one's perfect for what we're talking about tonight, right? So the reformed villain is someone who in their past was a villain in the terms, whatever that means in the campaign world, right? Bad guy. Just because you are a bad guy does not mean you are bad guy. So they've given up that past life of being a villain, a bad guy, to be something better. And they may not be the polar opposite of that, right? Like, they may not have gone from like, I was a villain, now I am like super good guy, right? Mm-hmm. They could be an anti-hero, right? Like they could like, it's not a 180 flip, right? It can be, it can be less drastic than that. It can absolutely be a 180 flip, but it could also just, be an anti-hero, vigilante, something like that, right? But the key part is they're no longer an actual villain.
Right.
Are we all good on that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We brainstormed up a bunch of villains that we like kind of rounded up from media. Uh-huh. And we're just going to kind of run through them. I don't think we have to pause too much on them, but we're each going to just go around the table a couple times talking about them. So I'll pick the first one, which is Magneto, who has been a reformed villain at various times in the X-Men comics.
Jason Bourne, who was a assassin for Treadwell before getting wonked on the head.
True. You know what? I want to skip this one. This is actually kind of spoilery.
I guess it's spoilery if you've ever seen.
Yes.
I mean, there are people that haven't seen the show yet, so.
Yeah.
There's a character from She-Ra. How about that?
There's a character from She-Ra.
There's a character from She-Ra. There you go. Yes. Those of you who've watched She-Ra will know what we're all talking about. Next one up, the Scarlet Witch from the MCU starts as a Hydra agent. Well, Hydra asset, I should say.
Aaron's son from Farscape, who starts out as part of the enemy empire before joining the team.
Yeah, Peacekeeper, right? Isn't that the...
I think so.
I think that's the name of those
Peacekeepers.
It's been a decade since I've seen that show, so...
like about half of the Avengers in the comics all started out as villains. Hawkeye, Quicksilver, Wonder Man, Scarlet Witch.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Oh, this one didn't occur to me. Xena, Warrior Princess.
7 of 9 from Star Trek. She was one of the board originally.
Tertiary adjunct to Unimatrix 0.
Unimatrix 1.
Unimatrix 1, sorry. Unimatrix 0 is the other thing.
Yes.
And I'll add one more that the entire Marvel comic, The Thunderbolts, is all about a bunch of villains either being forced to or trying to go good.
Yeah.
Well, if they're being forced, it doesn't really count. If they do it on their own, then yeah.
Some of them flip, right? For real.
Yes.
Like some of them are like not like some of them are not genuine. They're pretending to be pretending to be heroes. Some of them flip to actual reformed.
I mean, well, the whole plot of the original comic was that they were a bunch of villains pretending to be heroes. in order to fleece the entire world.
Yes, but that still makes them villains.
And then 2/3 of them decide we like being heroes more than villains.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the part where they become reformed villains. Yes.
Yeah. You got to understand that reformed villain is probably my favorite. I love a good redemption story, so it's probably one of my favorite character archetypes.
So we're gonna have fun tonight then.
Oh, yeah. I will read any comic book about reformed villains.
Awesome. So that's an excellent start. Jerry, what kind of things should we be working into our backstories for our reformed villain?
Well, for the reformed villain, of course, the most important part is generally going to be about defining who were you as a villain. If your game has levels, you're going to need to figure out if you were a low-powered villain that reformed, or once a more powerful villain who somehow lost their power, or what happened.
Yeah, like so perhaps you were like a demon, like in hell or something, or whatever, the hells or whatever, where like you were super powerful, right? Maybe you had a demonic realm, whatever. And then when you decided not to be a demon anymore, like your superiors stripped you of power and then like cast you out from the hells. And now you're a low-level fighter looking to make it in the world and kind of forget your infernal past.
And if your game doesn't have levels, then your background can be a little bit more straightforward. You were once a villain, and now you're reformed. But what you want to do is take some time to figure out what kind of villain you were. You don't have to be the absolute worst villain in the universe. You can just be somebody who did bad things, and now isn't. It's going to have a lot to do, though, with the type of game and your campaign world.
Yeah, and if you're like making your character and you don't know a lot about this world, this is a good place for you to talk to your GM and be like, hey, if I was going to be like a reformed villain, what would make sense for this world? Right. So like if you're playing a superhero game, it's really easy to be like, oh, yeah, you're a reformed bad guy. You're a reformed villain who's now a hero. Yeah. But, the reason I brought up this thing about levels is like if you're playing D&D, it's hard to have formerly been Baron Von Badass and now also be a first level fighter without some explanation of like, why are you a first level fighter?
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So your GM's going to be a good resource for this. And again, if you don't really understand the world, like maybe you never played Ebron before and you're going to start a game in Ebron and you're like, oh, I really want to be a reformed bad guy. What would be good? Like, what would be a good background, or what group should I have come from, or whatever? That's where your GM is going to come in and help out.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you want to consider a bunch of different things. First of all, what's your character's name, obviously? Are they using the same name that they used when they were a villain? What kind of things did you do when you were a villain? When you were a villain, did you have any allies, henchmen? Who'd you work for? Did you have an arch enemy when you were a villain? Do they know who you are now?
Exactly. So once you understand the villain aspect of your past life, you need to then decide and figure out what made you reform, right? What's the event that made your character decide that being a villain was not what they wanted to be and to reform? And then as you think about what that inciting event was and how you reformed, consider who was negatively affected by your reforming, right? Like, did you have allies that you turned on? Did you have henchmen that you abandoned when you were like, well, I'm out of this business. See you, suckers, right? And you walked out the door to become a hero. Like, did your criminal organization crumble? Did somebody possibly pick up the pieces?
Or did you bring your minions with you? Like, perhaps like the movie Despicable Me.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
You know what? Gru is a perfect example of a reformed villain.
I was thinking, we
could
have put Gru on. Yeah, Gru could have been on the list as well. Yes.
Anyway, all right. So the next thing you want to think about, though, is now that you're reformed, what does it mean to be reformed? Are you not totally good? Are you an anti-hero? Do you have a vendetta against somebody for your past, whether they're good or evil?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, what kind of challenges are you having being a reformed villain, right? Is your past public, or do you keep it a secret? Are you tempted by doing villainous things from time to time? Old habits sometimes die hard, right? Like, you might, maybe your first instinct is always to do the villain thing. Is something or someone from your past seeking you? You have done some bad stuff and kept some questionable company. Is any part of that, either is any part of that actually washing up on you, or are you afraid it's going to wash up on you?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, so with that background coming together, let's jump over to the GM side and talk about some cool story arcs that a GM could mine from this background. What do you think, Phil?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm with Jerry, right? The Reformed Villain's is a great mine of good ideas. They're super compelling stories that can come from the Reformed villain. So your GM's going to have a lot to use. And without a doubt, right, the best story arcs for these characters are the ones that compare and contrast their villainous past, right? Yeah. When their villainous past and their current more heroic present are put into some sort of contrast. So there's no end to the number of arcs that we could have come up with, but we have put together a list of just some ideas, some seeds that a GM could pull together and pull into their campaign for like a character story arc. What do you got, Jer?
Well, the first is that the Reformed villain encounters someone or something they harmed when they were a villain, and now they have a chance to make it right if they want to, which can be a nice uplifting story.
Assuming that the person who they try to make it right is happy to see them, right? Like,
yes,
they may get a bittersweet, like they fixed it, and the person's still like, you're a monster. I don't care if you fix this. Like, you ruined everything, right? Like, and just leave them with that kind of gut punch.
I just realized there's an entire TV series about the Reformed villain. My Name is Earl. That's the plot of the entire series. Is he's going around trying to make right all the wrongs he did in his past.
I mean, he's kind of like a minor villain. Like, he did some shitty stuff. Like, yeah,
some very shitty stuff.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Okay, here's another arc that you could use. The character's secret past as a villain is in jeopardy when the party meets an NPC who once worked with the character in her old days as a villain. This works great if the public and or the party does not know the character's past. We're going to talk about in Pitfall's secrets, but for now, if your past is not public to everyone, having someone jeopardize it is makes for some good drama.
Yep. The next one is you have a plot where an ally or former henchman is committing crimes, and now this character and their new party have to confront them and deal with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can cause all sorts of trouble, especially if they're committing crimes that are related to things that the villain did in their past.
Yeah, I mean, one of your henchmen in the ruins of your departure is like picks up your mantle and goes forth. Like, that's definitely, that's definitely a one of those things that comes back and bites you. Yeah. All right. The character runs into a former romantic interest from back when they were a villain. How does the romantic interest regard the character now that they are reformed? Right. Like, this is good, messy drama. Like, this is
always good.
Yep.
Always good. Next was the rest of the party's in trouble, and resorting to your villainous ways would be the easiest, fastest way to help them. Do you resist, save them heroically, or do you give in to temptation? Something as simple as you've got a group of characters who, never kill. Never kill, never torture, always, and the easiest way to, hey, we've got this villain, an actual villain, what do we do? Well, the easiest thing to do would be to kill that, I have no trouble killing people. I did it all the time. Well, no, we shouldn't.
Or maybe you have tremendous trouble killing people because I don't do that anymore.
Exactly. Either one can be fun.
Exactly. Right. Like, it's a good personal temptation struggle kind of thing.
It's even more fun if the reformed villain no longer does that thing, and one or more of the party members is counting on their moral ambiguity to get them out of this. Like, well, we don't kill anybody, but you did that one time. I don't do it anymore. Yeah, but you did. I mean, that's another messy situation to be fun to play with. It's a lot of fun.
Yes. Last one I've got on the list here, and again, could go through so many of these, right? Your villainous past crosses over with the past of another PC. This is the thing you're always going to check with the other player to make sure that's okay. Like, this is kind of a group exercise. Don't just jam this into somebody else's backstory. But you definitely want, you can definitely make, like our opening, you can make for some really interesting drama when that revelation comes out.
With that in mind, now to go back to an episode from a couple weeks ago, and you have, what do you do when you need to add a character into a storyline? The ex-villain, now a hero, is another great way to add a higher level character into a game, because you can have that several levels of their past be a villain thing and bring them in here as a tie into one of the PCs. A good way to get them into the game real quick without having to do a lot of backstory. Yeah, and this was if the other players are on par with that, so this works well.
Cool. Talking about that that point about the party being in trouble and going your villainous ways, Andy Fox brought up the Lieutenant Suitor from Voyager, the Betazoid, the murderer who gets left on the ship when the Kazon take over.
Yep,
and he's got to revert to his old murdering ways to help free the ship.
Yep. It's good. It's a good example.
That's good stuff.
That is good stuff.
All right. So clearly the GM's going to have plenty to work with if you do this right. So now let's flip back to the player again. What do they have to look out for when using this archetype, Jerry?
Well, the most obvious is you don't want to have your character act like a villain. Having this as a background doesn't mean you get to go around and act like a villain. This is not a carte blanche to be that player and that character. You're a hero and you need to act like it. It's going to be tempted, but in the end, you should act heroic. You can have your character want to act like a villain, but always have them struggle and then act heroically. And this is a tightrope you got to walk. But we've seen too many people that have played the reformed villain and use that as an excuse to basically be chaotic neutral and run around being that I'm gonna say it, being the asshole in the party.
Yeah.
Where instead, if you have something where your character wants to act like a villain, like this would be the kind of thing, no, I shouldn't do that. That makes for some good drama, and it gives you a chance to act like it. And of course, as always, gives you a good chance to have good role playing with the other party members. So don't act like a villain, act heroically, but maybe you want to. Go ahead, Phil. Next one.
Yeah, absolutely. The next big pitfall is betrayal. Having a villainous background creates the possibility that the character will just fall in with their old villainous allies or their old villainous ways and betray the party. Take it from me, betrayal can be triggering for some people, like me. I have a big no-no about player betrayal, which, when this escalates, can easily lead to PvP, whether you wanted it or not. So it's really I can't say enough. You can tank a whole campaign with this kind of face heel turn if you betray your party. Like, it's one thing, like we've said earlier, it's one thing to resort to your villainous ways to help everyone. It's another one if you screw the party over, like that rotten little thing in Farscape.
The Emperor,
the Muppet,
the Muppet. I would have shoved that. If we were playing in a game, I would have taken that character and airlocked it like episode 2. See you, traitor. Yeah. So betrayal, like I said, this is one that, boy, when if you spring it on people as a surprise, expect there to be problems at the table.
Yep.
Cool. All right. What's the next one, JR? Because it falls very close to this one in terms of disruption.
If your character's background is secret, there are issues with having it be secret from the other party. Secrets are great for characters, but they are really terrible for players. Players are going to feel betrayed if you hide something that the villain has passed from them. Hiding it from their characters with consent is totally cool, and it can make for some cool drama. So it's okay to say, hey, my character is a villain. None of your characters know they're a villain, or there used to be a villain, but I want you as players to know this so we have something to work with. And to be honest, and this is just my experience, letting the other players know your secrets is almost always more fun than hiding it from them. It's always more fun, because if they know your secrets, they can create those interesting situations where you're constantly bumping up against those secrets without revealing them. Gives you a chance to act on those secrets without it being a problem. And it allows the players to conveniently ignore certain things that occur so that your secret remains. Players are much more paranoid than the characters they play. Players always suspect everything in the game. And so if you start acting in a villainous or secretive way, chances are players are going to think that's a problem. But if they know it's a secret, then they can rationalize why their character would ignore that sort of thing and make it a lot more fun for everybody instead of everybody just constantly trying to, aha, I found your secret. No, you already know the secret. We're having a good time with it. And I've been in a lot of games where players have secrets, sometimes conflicting secrets, and we have a great time with kind of stepping right up to the precipice of one or the other one revealing it and then finding ways not to, and that becomes a great role-playing opportunity for the whole game and the GM too.
Yeah, I mean, if you include me as a player in your character's secret, I will work to help to keep your secret. In fact, I will make sure that my character purposely doesn't overhear things. I will make sure that my character purposely misinterprets things to keep that rolling. But correct, if you keep it from me as a player, I'm gonna be all up in that shit. Yeah. Especially because having a secret also triggers fears of betrayal.
Yep.
Right? So like it becomes like a 1-2 punch. Like it's really not. It's just if there are a few things that you should ever avoid in games, right? Surprise player betrayal and keeping secrets from players. I can't tell you from my 1980s, like from both my 1980s role playing and also having played so much Amber, where there were so many secrets. Maybe in the after show, I will tell you an Amber game that resulted in tears based on player betrayal. Like nearly ended a gaming group for it. Terrible idea. I can't stress these things enough. Okay, finally, the other pitfall that we want to talk about. And this one is for the GM. That it's a pitfall they need to look out for with this background is having NPCs trust the character. Right? Early on, this is like a fun little thing to explore. Like, oh, that guy used to be a villain. We don't we don't want to trust him or work with him. But very quickly, that needs to go away. Yeah. Like that's a 1 session arc where the character has to earn their way into the group trusting him, and then once that's done, never use it again. It's a very quick thing you do to kind of rationalize the story and then get rid of it, because if everywhere they go everybody hates this this character and they can't work with anyone because no one will trust them because of their background, yep, the character's gonna resent taking this background. Yep. It's not the thing that they wanted to focus on. It's not the thing they wanted to focus on for playing this background. It's going to be the thing that it's going to be a drag. Plus the party's going to be we can't take this guy we can't take him to town. They'll run us out of town again. Right. So, yep. Or it'll get into things like you go sleep in the field while the rest of us go to the hotel because, we can't bring your traitorous ass with us. It's just going to make a mess. So what you want to do is somewhere very early in the game, you want to have a thing where you address this and then get it out of the way. Just have a little arc, and then people are like, oh, he's not so bad. See, he's reformed, and then just be done with it.
Yep. All right. So knowing what things to avoid, what are some player tips for playing this background well, Phil?
Yeah. Okay. So obviously the first part is avoid all those pitfalls above, right? So don't do any of those things. But here's a few more tips that we think will let you have some real fun with this background.
All right. First, think like a villain. Ask for a bonus at a time when you're trying to figure out what a villain is going to do next, because of your background as a villain, you have some idea. What would I do if I was this? Oh, we're up against, Baron Badass's minions, and they're doing something in this area. What would Baron Badass have wanted me to do when I was working for him here? And the GM can give you a chance to give you a hint or a clue or something along that line.
You think you can take down those shields? I can if you get me on that planet.
Yeah, exactly.
Finn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Finn is a reformed bad guy.
Yes.
This is true. Finn is a reformed bad. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
So good.
I mean, his reformation happens in the first few minutes of the movie, but if we, to go through his background, he was a stormtrooper. So Finn.
Actually, I was in sanitation.
FN, isn't it FN 2187? I think. Anyway, next one. It's who you know. When the players need to find a contact of dubious background, a money launderer, fence, builder of high-tech, questionable high-tech gear, you know who to call. It's someone that you used to use in your past. This is like the Raymond Reddington. Like this is the Raymond Reddington move.
Or I know Lando.
Yes.
Exactly. All right. Number 3, working hard to be good. You can add some levity if your player players get to see you rehearsing being good, saying good things, practicing mercy, etc. Your character really wants to show that they're good, and so the former Darth Naughtiness is now walking around in his black power armor, trying to give out little candies to all the little orphan kids, and trying to be good. And of course, they're either terrified of him or, as kids are, probably fascinated by him because he's, big black scary monster, and kids love that. So
I'm just going to warn you, I'm a hugger.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Jerry,
That's
you need
perfect,
to throw the
actually.
pencil to the other side of the room.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I'm doing. I'm fidgeting. That's
Is
my
he
fault.
fidgeting with something?
I'm fidgeting with a pencil. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Jerry.
I apologize.
It's okay. Yep. I've done my share of fidgeting on the mics.
That's exactly what it is. Thank you. Thank you, whoever caught that. Thank you.
Okay. The next tip is, oh no, it's the X. Work to complicate a scene by asking the GM to make a villain that you're facing a former romantic interest. And for some levity, allow the details of your breakup and any unresolved arguments to spill into the dialogue of the scene.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I'm always in favor of that.
Good times.
Or multiple X's, always even more fun. Next, I have regrets. Create a dramatic scene with an NPC or a fellow character by talking about the remorse you have for some of the things you've done in the past, especially if they've directly affected that character. I'm sorry. I see now that what I did was wrong, or that was a different person, or anything along that line. You have a chance to create some dramatic scenes. And the key here in all of these, by the way, is don't solo any of these. Bring the other players into these things as a player. Find ways to make your reformed villain, if you're going to have a monologue about how sorry you are, apologize to one of the player characters. Get them in there. If you're gonna try to practice being a good guy, make sure somebody's around to witness it or ask them for help. So what is this karaoke you speak of, kind of thing, and go from there. But try to bring the other players in to make it so it's not just about you. Don't use the ex-villain as a reason to kind of showboat and solo your character for most of the game. So those are our thoughts.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so that is our overview of the reformed villain background. We're going to do what we normally do when we hit mid-segment. We're going to check in with the chat room, see if they have any questions. And then we're going to find out their thoughts about reformed villains. But first, Bob, tell us about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
Yes, I would like to point out that we have a show called the Gnome Cast. Several of the gnomes from Gnome Stew get together and occasionally bring in outside guests to talk about gaming topics and themselves in an effort to entertain you and avoid being thrown into the stew pot. Good times. It's entertaining. It's usually a fairly short form. It's not like an hour long adventure. It's usually a more digestible topic. But a lot of good times. They've had a lot of fun guest stars, especially over the last dozen or so episodes. And maybe somewhere along the line, if you go back and listen to the back catalog, maybe you can find some clue as to the missing 21st episode. I don't know. I hear that's a thing. All right. So the chat room for life. Chromatic Chameleon, I believe, pointed out another example of the reformed villain, which I had to stop and think about. Remington Steele. Anybody remember Remington Steele?
Oh my God, of course.
Yes.
Remington
Steele was like a grifter con man who becomes the face of the detective agency that Stephanie Zimbalist is running. And hilarity ensues because, that's what happened. I used to love that show.
That was a great show.
Am I correct that both Remington Steele and Moonlighting, which wind up being two great shows, are built on a terribly sexist premise? And I don't mean sexist. Yeah.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, both of those shows are built on the premise that they're slightly different. I'll take Moonlighting out for a second.
Yeah.
Remington Steele is built on the premise that Stephanie Zimbalist's character, who's like the real detective, needs a man to be the face of the company so people will take her seriously.
Yeah, nobody was taking her seriously as a detective until she decided to put the man in the front, and then all of a sudden...
She pretends that there's a man running the company.
Yeah.
Right, and then she finds a guy to fill in.
No, she doesn't find him. He shows up one day and tells everybody he's Remington Steele, and she can't say he's not without blowing her cover. That's the whole premise. That's how he's the con man. For a long time, she's running around telling people that there's this guy, Remington Steele, that runs the company, and she's just the detective. And then one day, he shows up, tells everybody he's Remington Steele, acts the part, has all the mannerisms that she talks about, and now she can't say he's not without blowing her cover and proving that she's been lying to everybody all this time.
Got you. Okay.
That's the con.
So the sad part is it's actually a pretty good 80s show. It's built on a terrible premise, right? Like it's built on a premise that in the 80s, some group of writers was like, this is a great idea. We'll get a guy
Nowadays you drop that in the writer's room and people are like, oh, I don't know.
You hope they say that, right? Moonlighting's different. Moonlighting, David Addison's always been the detective. And Maddie shows up because she owns the company, but she's like broke, like she's out of money or something. And it's like one of the last holdings that I think I think her accountant embezzled all her money or something. And it's like the last holding she has.
Yeah, I totally blanked on that. I don't remember how that one showed up.
Yeah. I just know they ended up as partners. That's all I know about it. So you're probably 100% right on that.
And then I'm sure they had the romantic tension, will they, won't they, throughout both of those shows. Because
yes,
definitely in Moonlighting.
Moonlighting.
The Moonlighting Shakespeare episode, by the way, is amazing.
Oh, the Taming of the Shrew episode.
The Taming of the Shrew episode, yes.
That's classic 80s TV.
The entire episode is Iambic Pentameter.
That's some serious. That's some quality 80s TV.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really funny because it's those things that I think back to, like, oh man, I used to love watching Remington Steele, and then I think back to like, all right, what was that show about? And then it's like, oh man, really?
Yep.
Like,
problematic.
Damn it, 80s.
I mean, he was shown as being the bad guy for doing that sort of thing. It's not like they said, "Oh, what a wonderful person he is for being the face of the company." It was.
Oh no, it's not that part. Yeah. It's the part that she needs to pretend that there's a guy running the company for anyone to take it seriously, and that's not the only 80s. That's not the only 80s comedy / drama where I believe that's the case. I'm pretty sure if I racked my brain a little, we could find a few more movies that fall into that same genre.
Yeah, I'm sure. It was a different era, and there was problematic stuff going on, so no doubt.
Yep, that's very true.
Yep. Rode the train right through it.
Yeah. Chug. All right, let's jump back into the second half of this thing, as we do with our roundtable discussion, starting with the following question.
Sure thing. Name a reformed villain that you have enjoyed in a game that you've either GM'd or played, or in media.
Well, to start with media. For media, I've always liked Spider-Man's backup team. For a long time in the late 80s, early 90s, Spider-Man had a whole bunch of people that he'd reformed from villains. Sandman, Prowler, Molten Man, Rocket Racer, and all of them at different times were trying to make up for being baddies. At one point, when Green Goblin had reformed, Spider-Man was using Oscorp as a place like, hey, here's this reformed villain, give him a job. Okay, here they are. Thank you. I just put my pencil out again. I liked all those characters, and they even got to be a backup team for him against the Sinister Six once. And there was even a brief time when Sandman joined the Avengers as a reserve Avenger. And then when everybody was gone or captured, Sandman led the Avengers for two issues because he had the most experience in actually using his powers. It was him and a bunch of oddballs like Rage and a bunch of others that were there. And I loved all those stories. Force was another one who ended up being an Iron Man villain and went to work for Iron Man. So I've always loved all those comic book characters. In the game, Pathfinder, at least Pathfinder First Edition, has a goddess named Sarenrae, who is the goddess of vengeance, but she's also the goddess of redeeming villains. It's built right in that one of the big things that her priesthood and her paladins do is try to redeem villains. If you can get a villain to stop being a villain, you forgive them, and then they have to spend the rest of their life trying to do the right thing. And if they screw up again, you murder them horribly. But so Sarenrae, so like a party of Sarenrae characters could be like a paladin, a cleric, a succubus, a ex-lich, whatever, going through the whole thing. So I had a half-orc in Pathfinder for the Wrath of the Righteous storyline. And his backstory was that he'd been part of a marauding horde of orcs. And they got overwhelmed and defeated and taken to jail, and they were basically all going to be executed. And while there, he saw the light because he was taught by a paladin of Sarenrae, and he became a paladin of Sarenrae. And so now I had this half-orc who'd been this horrible marauder and had spent the early part of his life just going around murdering and killing and looting, and now was he'd gone off to join the Wrath of the Righteous, which was a crusade to stop demons from coming up. Basically as I'm going off to do the right thing or die trying. We had a lot of fun with that because that GM did actually have things where we occasionally encountered people whose villages had been overrun by my horde and had to deal with that. So it's a lot of fun to play. And of course, being a paladin meant that I had a good excuse for why I constantly was doing the right thing. And it was good. Plus, I always enjoy playing any character that's involved with Sarenrae because a chance to redeem other villains is always a fun thing. So that's what I had. Bob?
Cool. I honestly couldn't think of a reformed villain PC hero type person in any of the games that we've done off the top of my head. So nothing going on there. But as far as media goes, and this is kind of, some people might consider this to be kind of on the fringe because of the connection, but I've always been kind of partial to the Agent Venom version of Venom, where they take the symbiote and they bonded it with Flash Thompson, and he would go out on military style operations bonded to the symbiote. And I thought it was very interesting because, it was one thing when they took Eddie Brock and Venom together and they turned him into Anti-Venom and tried to go the anti-hero route. It was all right. But this had a lot more depth to it. Flash Thompson had gotten wounded in combat, and he lost the lower part of both of his legs. So he's confined to a wheelchair, and then they bond him with the symbiote, and the symbiote lets him walk. He gets his mobility back. So you've got this whole dealing with his PTSD and like being able to walk, and then having the kind of the trauma return whenever he's not bonded, he's not on a mission, he's back in the wheelchair. So you've got this dichotomy going on, and then you've got a whole bunch of other. There was a nice depth to those stories, and eventually he went out into space and joined the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then weird stuff happened after that. I lost track of him, but it was an interesting run, and I thought that was a nice way to go with this classic, like seriously evil for the sake of being evil. It felt like Venom for the longest time. So that's the one that I enjoyed. What do you got,
I
Phil?
think that totally counts. Well, first I was going to say, I think that counts because Flash Thompson was a double reformed villain. Not only was Venom reformed to become but Flash was kind of a villain against Peter in the early days.
I don't consider Flash to be a villain. Flash was a dick, and he acted poorly a lot of the time, but in general, he was a good person, especially as he grew older. Like when he was in high school, he was clearly a dick. But you get
in high school,
that.
in high school he was a bully, and that makes him a villain. So,
well, you could.
I have a hard line on that. If you're a bully, you're a villain.
That's fine. That's fine.
But that's just me. No, but that was a good choice though. Cool.
For me, in media, my probably all-time favorite reformed villain is Jason Bourne. First of all, it combines two of my favorite things, which is super soldier mythology. Right? Like I love the origin of Jason Bourne. And then in the 3-movie arc of Bourne, right? Like you find out, like, he clearly by the middle of the first movie, he's like, I want to be a good guy. Right. He discovers at the end of the first movie that like, well, I probably was a bad guy. And then when you get to the end of the thing, and I don't think we're at any spoiler level for Jason Bourne. When you get to the end, you find out he willingly signed up for the conditioning that he went under.
Yep.
Right. Like David Webb totally was in for all of this. And I just love Jason Bourne as a reformed hero because as a reformed villain, because he is one plagued by the bad actions of his past.
Yep.
Right. The second movie is all about his first mission in the fall, like the aftermath of like dealing with what he did in his first mission. His past catches up to him and his girlfriend gets killed. Right. Like that's another piece of it. He goes after the people who made him only to find out that he willingly joined up. But still needs to put an end to it. And he most often tries to get away from his villainous past. He most of the time only knocks people out and doesn't kill anyone. And in the first movie, they're really good about it because every time he gets a gun, he like throws it away.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like as soon as he gets a gun, he like takes it apart and throws it on the ground, or he like throws it in the garbage can, whatever. Like he's very much trying to reform, but when pushed, like that agent training kicks in and he's like, full on Jason Bourne.
Yep.
So it's like easily my favorite. I will watch Jason Bourne movies. And I guess the other one, man, we've like so many we didn't put on here. John Wick's a reformed villain. He gives up the whole gig. He's living his quiet little life when they kill his dog. And then he literally digs up his past, right? Like goes to the basement, digs it up and becomes an anti-hero, and just tears his way through that whole mob. God, I love that movie too.
Now that we're thinking of it, the Hauser character from the original Total Recall, Schwarzenegger, he's a bad guy working for Cohagen.
Yeah,
and volunteers for the whole undercover op, and ends up at the end being a good guy.
Go to recall. Yeah,
get your ass to boss.
My RPG one is actually from a Games on Demand I played at Gen Con a few years ago. maybe 2015 or something. I was playing Worlds in Peril.
I think I was in that game.
Yes, and I purposely picked up the reformed villain, and in our first combat, I asked if the person we were fighting could be my ex-girlfriend. And actually, if you were in that game, if you remember, the GM was like, "Why?"
Yeah, because
and I was like,
interesting.
Why? like, because this is gonna be fun. Like,
Yeah.
This GM was like, I don't understand why you want the like that character to be your ex girlfriend, and I'm like, go with me. Like,
yeah, just run.
This is gonna be. Yeah, it was really. That was a very interesting moment of hanging something out there that I thought was going to make the scene a lot more fun, and the GM was like dead to it. It was just. Anyway, I did have actually fun playing it because he did eventually acquiesce and play the ex-girlfriend, and we did let. Much like that tip above that we put in there, we did let things about the relationship bleed into the superhero dialogue during the fight, which was great.
Yeah.
So, because it was a very human breakup that was getting discussed in the middle of the superhero fight, like while people are flinging cars and spiders and stuff at each other. Snakes or spiders or something. I forget that was like her gig. Anyway, that's question 1.
All right, question 2. What challenges would you have playing this background?
Yes, I would say the challenge for me would be how hard to hit it. You want this to be a thing, but you don't want to overplay it. Like you want to emphasize like this is where I came from, and like I used to do this, and now I'm doing this. But like how hard, you don't want to overdo it. You know, you don't want to shove it in everybody's face in every single scene, because that's just too much. That's overkill. You got to find the balance. That'd be what I would think.
Yeah, I'm going to tack right on to what Bob's saying, which is very close to what I had as well, which is there's a point where you need to let this background go. There's a point when your character is more defined by your actions as a hero.
Yep.
And less about your actions being a reformed villain, right? And there's like a tipping point in the story where you used to be the reformed villain, but now you're just a hero.
Yep.
Like you've kind of resolved whatever storylines you're going to have about your past, and now it's really just your past.
And as a GM, help the player get that moment where like they're standing on the bridge and they're holding the school bus full of kids and keep it from going over into the water and killing all the kids, and they pull the school bus back up onto the bridge, full media coverage like the Fantastic Four movie, you know? Like, and everybody's there and sees this person do this hugely heroic thing. Help them get that moment.
Yep. Yeah, that works best to get it to that point. I mean, think about it. Nobody thinks about Marvel Comics Hawkeye being a villain anymore.
Right.
That is so far in the past. It's something that people don't even consider. That's not part of their arc anymore. I think it's a good idea.
I mean, that's the same thing with the Scarlet Witch in Avengers 2, right? Hawkeye has that speech with her.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it doesn't matter what you did in your past. If you walk out that door, like you're one of us now. Like that's him telling the audience, right? Like we're going to be done with the Scarlet Witch as a bad guy.
Yep. That works.
Yeah.
And mine kind of ties into that, which is don't be too melodramatic. Don't keep falling back on the "I used to be evil, woe is me" kind of thing. That gets very old very quickly. So you want to make sure not to constantly bring it up. Don't make it the focus point of every interaction with your character. There should be more to your character than just "I'm a reformed villain." And do something with it. Build that up. Use it as a base, but then build it from there. So
have some growth.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to question number 3. What challenges would you have GMing a player with this background?
For me, it's just making sure that I have enough good places for the player and the party to make the hero versus villain choice. You don't want it to be every game, but it should come up often enough to be fun and make it fun for everybody where you have that thing going on. So that's pretty much it. Just have those places.
Yeah, for me, I think it's not having every villain know the character and have a grudge. Like it's fun for a little while to have that, like, oh, you were so and so, right? And like, have that grudge or that point of contention or whatever. But like sometimes villains don't know each other, right? It's not like a it's not like a complete social club where all villains know each other. Sometimes, the villain that's operating in an area has no idea who this person was and doesn't even care. Like, I don't even care who you were, right? Like, whatever. Because if everybody recognizes, like, if every villain recognizes the character, it's kind of a cliche.
Yeah.
So you want to like know when to push onto it and when to, like, just let it slide. Exactly. I think that's kind of the thing to kind of, for me, that would be kind of the thing to modulate.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right.
Cool.
That was our first background check.
Yeah. Let us know on social media, like where in the, in Slack, on Twitter, whatever, like, let us know if you like this segment, and throw us out some backgrounds. If you did like this segment that you'd like to see us do next, we'll do, kind of like we did with the adversary file. Thank you. Background check. We'll use this kind of format for plugging in, different backgrounds. Like I'll give you one just, off the top of my head, right? The amnesia character.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Right. Like, here's my background. Who am I? Like, I don't know. I just showed up here and I don't know anything. Like, that's another one that we could do a background check on, by way of showing, like, what are the pitfalls to playing this and what are the storylines and all that kind of stuff.
I like that. I read a whole mini story arc where that was the background of the entire party.
I mean, Jason Bourne is also this character.
Yes, that's true. Jason Bourne is that character.
Jason Bourne starts without any.
That's why you love it so much.
I mean,
I love it.
I actually did a just as a quick side before we jump out of here. No, you know what? Wrap the thing, and then before we jump to the conversation corner, I'll tell the thing I was talking about. Yeah. Did we say all the things?
We said all the things. So
okay. Then I'll do it right now.
Yep.
So I once did this as kind of a RPG experiment, and by no means was it original. I think everybody has tried it at one time or another, but I was playing like a little one-on-one game with a friend in high school, and basically gave them a blank character sheet for a Ninjas and Super Spies character, and was like, you wake up in a hospital. Right. And then, like, as they tried to do stuff, I would be like, oh, cool. Right pick locks as one of your skills. Right drive, like that kind of thing.
Yep.
I've heard all sorts of, like, people have done all sorts of amnesia stories. Corwin of Amber starts as an amnesia story. Which is actually pretty good, because Corwin of Amber does it. Zelazny does it with Corwin to help the reader get into the switch from the real world into the fantasy world. It's actually a pretty good literary tool. It's kind of cliche in other areas. It totally works for the beginning of the Amber Chronicles. Like, it's a really nice way to kind of ease into it. God, I read a couple of those last year at the beginning of the pandemic, and just thinking back, like, oh, I could read them again.
It's been a long time since I read.
Oh, it's such I have fond memories of both that game and those books. So, although, boy, can I tell you some things you should never do. Amber. Oh boy.
So Andy's got an example of the super intelligent, book smart person, but no real world experience.
Oh yeah.
That's always
that's a character concept. That's the the super genius, but never out of the lab.
Yep.
Oh, I should listen to Amber. Oh, who narrates the Amber Chronicles? Like the audiobook?
I think, didn't Zelazny do that?
No, Zelazny's been dead for like forever, hasn't he?
I don't know. I can't remember who had the one, because that's how I got the two Amber books. It was the two that I listened to They were read by somebody famous.
Wheaton. Oh no, Will Weston. Will Weston reads the second half. Is that the Merlin Chronicles? I like the Merlin Chronicles too. The Merlin Chronicles get like, oh, Will Wheaton.
What is Will Wheaton?
Oh yeah. The Merlin Chronicles get like right up, like straight up weird. The first Chronicles are like, well, this is some strange fantasy stuff, and then you like flip to the Merlin Chronicles, and you're like, well, this is definitely the second campaign that's being run in this world. Like, it's straight up weird now.
People decided to really flex their muscles.
I'm gonna make this supercomputer. Call it Ghost Wheel.
Ghost Wheel is one of my favorite characters of all time, though.
Yeah.
All right.
Fond memories.
We should jump on into the conversation corner then. So let me hit the thing with the thing in the place. All right. So yeah, we mentioned Star Wars Visions up at the top. I watched the first 3, and it much like Jerry, the very first episode, it's called The Duel, is so good. It's black and white with a little bit of color, strategically placed color, and it is a perfect example of the Japanese influence on storytelling that George Lucas took into his films. It's such a good episode, and it also, it plays with tropes, which was so refreshing. I was like, oh, I know where this is going, and then it's like, but I didn't. Surprise! Oh, nice. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Secondary characters are good in that episode too.
Oh yeah, there's
so
a
cool.
bunch of
so cool.
When you look and see people scattered across this village, when you get to see close-ups of like different races, species from the Star Wars universe, and it's like, oh, I recognize that one. Oh, I recognize that one. So yeah, very, very cool. Going in, there are certain styles of anime that I'm not a huge fan of. And the third episode, The Twins, kind of leans into one of those ones that is not my favorite. And that one was not as tight, in my opinion, as the first 2. Very much looking forward to watching the rest of the episodes, because it's an interesting, it's other people's interpretations of Star Wars from a culturally different perspective, and I think it was a great idea, and I hope they do it again. I hope they make more. Give me season 2, 3, 4, whatever. Just keep doing them, because I think it's a really cool idea.
Having watched the first 5, episode 3 is by far the weakest, and while it's still fun, it's by far the blandest. It is exactly what you think somebody would write if they were going to write a Star Wars story, kind of thing. It's very much, it's like if the EU was well written. It's basically what it comes down to. Still not bad, but it's very bland. Yeah.
So looking forward to another episode of Lower Decks this week. The show, we're going to continue to rave. We should probably just put a disclaimer at the beginning of the conversation corner. All 3 of us love Lower Decks, and we're enjoying the hell out of it. And that's because we're going to say the same thing every time. What if apparently potentially spoilery, but the last 2 episodes of the season of What If it's a 2-part finale.
Oh.
And it builds off the final scene from the episode from last week. So
interesting.
So
okay.
Pay attention. And there is a missing episode, which I forget why they said they took it out, but there's another episode which was Iron Man ending up on Sakaar instead of Thor and fighting in the Tournament of Champions.
I was wondering about that because there's a Lego set, which is Iron Man Sakarian armor.
Yes. And they pushed that back to season 2, and I forget what the rationale was for it, but that one is from everything I've seen about it, is if you thought Party Thor from last week was the lightest episode with a lot of fun and change of pace from all the darkness of the other ones, like Iron Man on Sakaar is like the funny episode. Is what it was called.
I mean I could see why, right?
So that should be interesting. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the finale of this season to see how they do this thing. But like I knew some of the stuff that was coming up because you can piece some of it together. And they totally spoilered the hell out of it with I think it's a Hyundai commercial. It's an automobile commercial with what if characters in it, and they totally spoilered up the place. It's fun.
Oh, I'm glad I don't pay attention to those things.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my TV. Continuing to watch Kipo, which is just refreshing and fun. Condo stuff continuing, the plumbing. I gotta call Lowe's tomorrow and check on the status of the replacement doors that I'm getting for all my closets, the sliding doors. Find out what the hell's going on there because they were back ordered. They had to get some stuff from the factory. And then twice now I have used the Wegmans scan app to do my grocery shopping.
One.
And that's the shizzle, man.
So you're talking to the guy who's been using it all pandemic long, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I'm like an evangelist for this app. For people who don't know what this is, I'll do you want me to you tell
go
me,
ahead.
What is it?
So
So the Wegmans scan app is an app that once you're inside Wegmans, you activate the app on your phone, and then using the camera of your phone, you just as you're shopping, you scan all your barcodes and put your groceries in the cart. And when you are done shopping, you just go up to one of the unmanned kiosks and scan the barcode on it with the app, and it transfers your order to it. You pay and you leave.
Yep.
And it takes out all the lines.
Yep.
From having to like stand in line at the end of grocery shopping. Oh, it's glorious.
It removes any of the bagging issues that you may have had with people who are not good at bagging or just don't care because you bag it yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just glorious.
I love it. Sam's
used
Club
it.
has the same thing. So
I've used it all pandemic long, and while I will say this, while I am cognizant of it being shadow labor, in that it's taking work from a cashier and putting it on you, in the face of the pandemic, I have really liked it for the fact that I don't have to stand in line with people. I don't have to really interact with anyone. I don't have to put a cashier in any jeopardy by breathing on them breathing on me kind of thing. I just like do my shopping, hit the kiosk, pay and leave.
Yep.
So
I'll be honest, as somebody, even if all the registers were open and we weren't in a pandemic, this is still how I prefer to shop.
I mean, that's fine. That's a preference. I was a cashier at a grocery store for 8 years. So I'm what you call it? I'm, I don't know if I want to say cognizant or sensitive or whatever, but I get what Wegmans is doing. It's a form of shadow labor, and it's why when they had the unmanned kiosks in the beginning, I wouldn't use them, right? Like I would just go to a cashier and cash out kind of thing. But since the pandemic, where standing on lines isn't, is a risk and whatever, I've been a much bigger fan of this app, and they make it really easy. Like if you're weighing fruits, you can just scan the barcode that's on the scale. It's really easy.
They put a lot of thought into it, and it works, and like that. Here's the thing though, when you stop and think about it, all right, you got the whole thing about shadow labor, but if you look at it now, there are people that are never going to use the app, and they're never going to use the self-checkout.
Oh, sure.
They're always going to go to a regular cashier. Okay. And then there are other people that are like, I'm always going to go to the express checkout because I want to do this thing myself. I want to handle it myself. Like these other people, they never pack my bag properly, blah, 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 blah. Right. My big pet peeve is that, in my opinion, self-checkout, especially if there's a small number of self-checkout stations, self-checkout should be like an express lane. If you have two large carts full of stuff and you're going through self-checkout, you're clogging up the system. That's my opinion. Whatever. Most stores have, like if you go to Walmart,
It's 20 items or less. That's it. You cannot go to self-checkout if you have more than 20 items.
So far, every Wegmans that I've seen it in has not had any restrictions at all.
No, Wegmans does not.
And I've seen people go through with the 2 giant carts full of stuff. And they're taking up a whole bunch of space, blocking the aisle, whatever. They're taking up that station for like way longer than everybody else. And is it valid for them to? Sure, that the system, there's no restrictions, whatever. I just feel like it should be like treated like an express lane. But you've got 3 options, and everybody's going to kind of fall into their own little niche of how they like to do it. And to me, it takes some of the strain off of the original thought, where it's like, all we have is cashiers. We've got 15 lanes, but we've only got 4 cashiers. Everybody's backed up. There's like huge backlog of people just blocking the aisles because they can't get through the lanes because there's only 4 people. And if they've got staff shortages, whatever. Now you've got these other options that help keep everything flowing and get people in the store, and then important, back out again. The longer it takes you to get in and out of that store, the more problem you're going to have when it comes to something like a pandemic situation or any kind of thing like that. It's like, get people in and out, man. Make them move. And anything that helps that.
Again,
I'm always in favor of that.
Again, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of it right now. I wouldn't have been a big fan of it before, but like in pandemic times, and now kind of just the new, like just thinking about it those kind of ways. Yeah. Like, I really do like that. Like, I go through the store, and I never worry about me bagging stuff because, again, I was a cashier for 8 years. I'm a great bagger, right? Yeah. So, like, I bag
that's
my
the
stuff.
problem, though, is that a lot of new cashiers are not good baggers, and they're not teaching them how to bag it very well anymore.
So,
what frustrates me is when I've got stuff lined up on the conveyor. Yes. It's obvious I've got this stuff and this stuff and this stuff. And some cashiers gonna reach. I'm like,
over
no,
stuff.
No. Yeah. I'm like, no, bag what I've got here. I'm not.
No, I do. I do this. I do the same thing. Like when I used to put things on the conveyor belt. Again, as a former cashier, I would bag. I would bag it in terms of like all my cold stuff, all my cold foods, my non-foods, my regular groceries, my vegetables, my squishies, like in order. Like, don't break the order of this. No. Like, I want these basically in bags in this order.
And if you're at the register, put your phone away if you're a cashier. Don't keep looking down at your phone while you're bagging my stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
you've got a special knack for finding the people that are problematic too, Jerry. You've got like a gift, because I have never, ever in my entire time of going to the grocery store ever seen anybody, but especially the young people. I have never caught a young person being irresponsible at the register. They've always been doing their job.
Oh. Not at
thousands
Wegmans,
upon thousands of trips to all kinds of grocery stores. Like, I've never seen it.
Tops is famous for it. The Tops near me is famous for it. Where they're like arguing with their boyfriend on their phone while they're also.
Oh no, I've never seen that at a Wegmans.
Or flirting with the bag boy.
Well, I mean, look, I flirted with my share of.
Yeah, but do that on your own time, man. Bag my stuff and go.
I bagged stuff and flirted.
All right, before we get too much farther down the grocery store rabbit hole.
That's a hot button for me.
Yeah. So that's enough about me. Jerry, what about you?
I'm just going to say I love Lower Decks because I think that Phil is going to go into it more. So I'm going to say I love Lower Decks. It's worth it. Go see it. I love it. I laughed. It was great. Disco, I'm now midway through season 3, and so I'm really enjoying it a lot. And it just was a lot of fun. We did a Lego night again this week, which was every other week we do a thing here at my house where I invite people over and you bring Legos, build whatever you want to build, or just we sit and chat, and we have geek night, basically chatting around. We'll sometimes watch some TV and laugh. And I'm slowly building a big Lego set. It's going to probably take me another 2 more Lego nights. It's going to probably be like a 12 to 16 hour build. So it's been a lot of fun.
Is it a named set, or are you?
Yeah, it's the Academy Square, which is the if you've seen the Lego, every year Lego puts out a building for the cityscape. This is a double wide 3 building like courtyard thing with it's a coffee shop, a flower shop, and a bakery with a dentist, an apartment, and something else above that. They're 3 3-story buildings that make a square around a fountain and everything else like that. So they're very detailed and lots of gubbins and everything. So it's a lot of fun. We have a good time with it all the time.
Nice.
Yep. Enjoyed football this week. It was on Fox, so I couldn't get it at my house. So Bob invited me over, and we sat and we watched some very good football. And lastly, I watched Squid Game on Netflix and loved it. It is dark. It is not for everybody, but it is a really fun TV series. You like this? It's basically it takes place in Korea, and you can get it either dubbed or subtitled. And basically, a bunch of people who are heavily in debt for various reasons are offered a chance to play 6 children's games. They don't know what they're going to be, but once you sign up, you have to stay with it till the end. If you win the grand pot, which is something like 45 billion with a B won, which comes out to be something like $20 million. And the winners split whatever the money is at the end. Every time somebody is eliminated, the money goes up. And if you don't play the game properly, you are removed from the game with extreme prejudice. In other words, people get killed on 11. There's 450 people in this thing. Like the first game is Red Light, Green Light, run by a creepy doll. And when they say red light, if you're still moving, they just shoot you dead.
Oh man!
And the game
very dystopian.
And the games get more and more complicated from there. But the story is really about some of the characters, what put them in the situation they're in, who they are, how they begin to form things, how they begin to realize that it's more important to kind of save your soul than win or even survive. There are some characters who are just like, listen, it's either you or me. I'm going to die because you're a better person than me. And you deserve to go on and maybe, get your brother out of that orphanage or whatever. And
maybe the real game show is the friends we find along the way.
Yes, the real game show is the friends we kill along the way.
Yes.
Because they don't know what game they're getting into with each game. So they'll do things like, okay, separate yourself into groups of 10. Okay, now you're doing this game. Okay, everybody get a partner. Okay, in this next game, you're playing against your partner. Whoever loses dies. Which gets creepy when you have things like, oh, husband and wife get teamed up together, that kind of thing. So it's dark, and there's also a secret of who's doing this and why. And there's a subplot about somebody's infiltrating the corporation from the outside. So it's a fun, dark, dystopian. It's exactly the kind of completely off the wall mini series that I enjoy watching. I enjoyed last year's Green Zone, which was also dark and twisted and a lot of fun. So I would recommend it. If that sounds like the kind of thing you'd be interested in, I'd recommend it. If you don't have a stomach for blood or gore and you want lots of happy endings, this is not a show. This is not like
don't watch this.
Yeah, no, it's very dark. It does have sort of a happy ending, but it's still dark. So I'll give you that. So Phil.
So What If? I totally enjoyed What If. I actually enjoyed What If a lot. I think that's probably my third favorite one of the series. I had a lot of laughs during that What If. It was hellishly fun. Lower Decks reaches so the episode's fantastic, and I don't want to give anything away about the episode, but to legitimize Lower Decks in a way that makes it absolutely 100% a Star Trek TV show, the great Jeffrey Combs appeared, voiced a character on the show.
Yes,
I can only hope that somehow this character will return. But it was fantastic. And it is, there is no mistaking his voice.
Nope.
Like, it's iconic, especially if you are a DS9 or Enterprise fan. Like, there is no mistaking his voice whatsoever. Is so good. So it was a lot of fun. And actually, it had a nice twist because I'll just say I thought Mariner was right. And it was fun to find out Mariner was wrong. Like,
yep. Surprise.
And I think it coins a phrase, right? You got Boimerd.
Boimler, yeah.
Boimler, yes.
Very funny. That show is if you are a Trek fan and you're not watching that, like if you're a Trek fan and you're not watching that show yet, you are in for a treat. Like it is just so much fan service. Like it's actually pretty good stories. Like they're actually pretty good Trek stories, but the fan service component of it is just so good. And I don't know if you saw any teasers. I saw a teaser on Twitter for this week's, and it looks hilarious. So the number of clips that I saw that was like, that's from that thing, like it's going to be another one of those nights. So I'm looking forward to that. With She-Ra finished, I had to go find something else to watch. So I just kind of like racked my brain. I was like, what are some series that like I never got to watch? And so like a couple of years ago, there was a series, The Last Ship on TNT. So I started watching that, and I just finished the first season of that this week. That's a good show.
My wife Lily loves that show. She watches it all the time.
Yeah, it's I mean, first of all, trigger or content warning. It's about a pandemic. So it's about a pandemic and the crew of the like basically last naval ship as the world is being decimated in a pandemic. So not the lightest of material.
No.
But it's really good. It also stars I forget the actor's name. He was a doctor. He was a doctor on Grey's Anatomy. McSteamy. Forget his actual character's name. But the actor, like I like that actor. I liked him on Grey's Anatomy.
Patrick Dempsey?
No, not that's McDreamy, the other guy. His buddy.
Okay.
His buddy with the white hair. He was the plastic surgeon. If you watch the show. I'll dig around later. Anyway, he's the captain of the boat. And I really like I said, I liked him on Grey's Anatomy, and I really like him on this show too. It's good. If you like military fiction, it's good. My dry spell for reading finally broke. I got some reading in. I was reading Cortex Prime by the great Cam Banks. I really like this game. But I will gush about it at a later time. But for the problems I've had with reading for the longest time, on Friday night, I sat down, made a cup of tea, cracked open the book, and read for an hour, which is the first time. It's the longest I've read like that in about 2 years since the early pandemic. And it was really nice to sit and read and just enjoy a book without zoning out or having trouble or flipping onto TikTok. I also played a little bit of Minecraft. Also helped coach Chris as he fired up a vanilla version of Minecraft and was like, well, let's figure out how this game works. And I was like, well, okay, let's give you at least some advice to survive your first night kind of thing. So that was kind of fun. I also installed iOS 15, which isn't normally something I geek on about, but iOS 15 added this feature in called the Notification Center, where you can tell the app that there are certain notifications I do not need to receive when they come up, and that you can just bundle them and send them to me at designated times during the day. So it knows like to let certain apps through, like text messages and things like that. But then it takes things like from like my Sonic or Burger King app and holds them and waits till like certain times of the day that I specified, and then rolls them up into a bundle and says, oh, do you want to look at any of your other notifications for today? And I got to tell you, my phones are so quiet now, thanks to that feature. Like they're not just like binging all the time. Like text messages, Slack messages, like Jerry just sent, like come through all the time. But all the other nonsense from those other apps, I have them just roll those up, and like 3 times a day, you can show me those. It's great. I'm a huge fan of this feature. I don't normally gush about an iOS feature, but it's really good. And hopefully Android will adopt something very similar, because it is really nice to not have my phone blowing up with things like, did you know if you spent $5 more, you could get a Starbucks, gold, whatever. Like, no, I don't give a shit. Or, hey, $5 Whopper day. Like, I don't care. Right. Like, I don't want to kill notifications. I just don't always want to see notifications. iOS 15. I'm impressed. Like that's a pretty cool feature. And you just get to go down the list. You can just basically tell, like, app for app. You can just be like, yes, this app can talk to me whenever. No, this app cannot. Right. And you can turn them on. You can turn them off. You can switch them, all that stuff. All right. That's enough. We should roll on out.
All right. That brings us then to the Patreon shout-outs. Thank you so much to the old school DM, our very own Mad Wizard Sean Merwin, Troy Sandlin, Zach Goins, Chris Constantine, Cindy Moore, Eric Simon, Mirko Frolik, Andrew Demps, and Brandon Barnes. And thank you to everyone for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with the other awesome listeners in the chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
And if you can't make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcasts. And take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as They're a Super Geek, Mastering Dungeons, Bone Obsidian, The FM Gamers, Panda's Talking Games, The Gnomecast, Jianghu Hustle, The Lounge, Bonus Experience, and back episodes of She's a Super Geek. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
Before you reveal your villainous nature to the rest of your party, send us some feedback. You can reach us directly in the old-fashioned emails, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Hit us up on Twitter. The show and the network is Misdirected Mark. He's Robert M. Everson. He's GM Gerrymander, and I am DNA Phil.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Panda's Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. Jianghu Hustle is at patreon.com/Jianghu Hustle, and Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Panda's Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Bamboo Lounge, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop!
Yow.